I must admit besides some point I already pointed out they did a great job in throwing everything in for the last episodes. Though it always feels a little bit crowded and rushed, we have many fulfilling moments here. Like the media war and the truth about Victoria finally out in the open. Since Aidan died and Emily put her away in Claremont, I waited for this. 'Cause that was always Emily's plan, to out the Graysons for the criminals and frauds they really are. And while she did a great job on putting off Conrad's masks, Victoria seemed to slip through her fingers at the beginning of this season. Though some questions that came up for me during watching are still not answered. Like, was this all theatre for Louise to keep her on Victoria's side no matter what? 'Cause watching this again, this little fight between her and Margaux seemed like a distraction for her. Especially because Margaux is leaving so soon and we see Victoria almost every time alone with either one of them. Are they both manipulating Louise? As we see later when Emily depicts how Victoria planned and executed her revenge, this all might be as much be a trap for Louise, to make her a complacent without even recognizing it. I must admit it works, 'cause how they edited it, you really get doubts if Emily was behind that, especially with the black hoodie. Okay, this does only work on first watch, but I liked that they tried to derail the audience a bit with those tricks. It's been long since they played with us this guessing game. About Emily and Jack at the cemetery. This calm scene I enjoyed more because of its look than their actual conversation. Sometimes the writers are trying too hard to be funny and playful with their own plot devices. But I still enjoy the leaves on the stone, a reminiscence to the time Amanda died in autumn. In season 2 we saw Emily standing in the rain at her grave and the funeral taken place with barren trees. 1 year later, presumably at her dying day, Jack visited Fauxmanda's grave and we saw the brown leaves. And playing with the camera focus is another nice little metaphor that perspectives are going to shift here. Or clash if you think about Jack's conversation with Nolan later. Anyway, I like the idea that Jack and Emily finally can bond over the loss of Fauxmanda, since they lost them both, as she pointed out in a fight in season 3. And I like her blue blouse. Again, this shirt I would love to wear. I am also noticing that she becomes more feminine and soft with the curls she is wearing from time to time. The sweaters with the crew neck point in the same direction. Obviously they are trying to shift her image, too. From that badass and kick-ass fighter to a more feminine and softer version that is more compatible with Jack. About Victoria being afraid of Emily. Now seeing this again with that little scene between Victoria and Louise's brother in mind, I think they did this on purpose. Leaving it in the open for 2 or even more different perspectives. The first one would have been that Victoria is faking all this to manipulate poor Louise. The second, which I always preferred, was that she is actually losing it and starting to believe her own lies. After all that evidence she found on the flash drive and what Emily pulled up in the season finale, she knows firsthand how dangerous Emily can be. And she knows David killed Conrad and would do anything for his daughter, so she might as well fears him. But I guess I was falling for her act as well. 'Cause it makes more sense that she had no intention to use the flash drive to bring Emily in jail. She just wants Louise to witness what Emily is capable of so that they support her with her plan to take her down. Remember when Emily dared Victoria to shoot her? What was her response? See, like Emily, she thinks death is too good for her and wants her to suffer more. About Nolan's and Emily's conversation. This was just so sweet how they mend things. And her remark, "He is wearing a nice suit," was surely something that made his day. About Stevie and David. Like I said before, this was an unexpected yet obvious choice for a pairing, and I am happy that they kept them in the friends zone. If we had a new season with a much lighter tone, they could have played around with them more, but here it is just inappropriate. since they all got so much on their plate to be involved in a new love triangle with their kids. But I like how she supports him later when he tells her about his diagnosis. For like always when cancer is involved, this comes out of nowhere and hits him really hard. And for obvious reason he cannot tell Amanda, cause this would crush her even more than Victoria's attacks about Margaux and Louise. This scene seems to be a red herring that I felt for, cause I really thought both women would be fighting about who takes better care of Victoria. But instead Margaux joins in Victoria's game to manipulate Louise. By the way, I like Margaux's new hairstyle with the water waves. She looks more feminine and fragile after she lost her unborn child. We have seen her a lot in light brown tones and black obviously. Now she is back to these bold colors and two colored dresses. Obviously a statement that she is back on the revenge track. About Emily's stunt to get the flash drive back. This was a little too much for me and I still cannot decide how we should see this scene. I mean, getting her in disguise again and Nolan's little gadget was cool. But is Victoria really that much afraid of her? It seems so untypical for her since she was threatening Emily almost the whole time this season. And both women never appeared to be frightened that much of anything, and at least of each other. So this scene with Victoria, Margaux and the FBI agent always felt as if there was something wrong here. You can call it bad writing, and I am just seeing too much here. But for me it looked as if Victoria was either playing this for Margaux and Louise to watch and see her as an innocent victim. Or she really is that much afraid because finally this is all too much for her and her mind wants to throw the towel. Like Emily, she had to deal with a lot this season. She found David back from the dead, her son Daniel died. So this would not have been far-fetched, especially since she was treated in Claremont and drugged. That must have had an effect on her, too, in the long run. Anyway, this scene always felt like theater for me. So I was suspecting that there was more going on behind the surface. About Amanda and David at the beach house again. Again there is this beautiful light we know from the flashbacks. It gives the scenes between Emily and her father such a dreamy quality. With the devastating truth about his cancer in mind, you cannot look at this without thinking this looks too good to be true. And they have chosen the perfect clothing here. Both fit perfectly in the scene as if they were grown together with the porch and the beach house. And those cream colors from the previous seasons are back. It seems as if for the finale they trying to conciliate Emily Thorne with Amanda Clarke instead of making her choose one of the two identities. I know you mostly talk about the costume department in historical movies or in fantasy movies like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones who deal with historical fabrics and fashion. But I think from the start they did a great job here in working with color shades and supporting the characters with the definite outfits. They made a lot of changes this season but stayed true to the signals they send with a particular color scheme. I like that, though I am not that much into fashion. About Louise making a scene. This was funny and sad and made me believe that they maybe could have a second chance with each other. Cos going after Tony was surely out of jealousy. It is strange that Nolan cannot see that. Another thing that was mysterious and clever is bringing Victoria's throne back. You knew she was up to something, but we could not tell now what her plan was. So they kept us hooked with this. About Jack leaving. This was tough to watch. As I said, I was never a fan of Emily and Jack as a romantic couple. And I cannot object those who think Jack's life would be far better and easier without Emily in it. You could really think this was his best decision. But when I think about Nolan, who is losing a friend, and Emily being so much attached to Jack, too, I just feel sorry for both them losing one if not their best friend. And for me it is unfair what Jack says to Nolan here about Emily. Him talking about her addiction might have been true for the previous season and the pilot episode. in which she felt back into old habits. But all she is doing now is to react to Margaux and Victoria and what they are throwing at her and her friends, Jack included. And I think she meant what she said at the cemetery and later in that conversation with her dad. She really wants this to be over. Not only because she is finished with it. She has her father back and wants to spend time with him, instead of dealing with the same old problems. And even though she has not decided yet if she wants to start new with Ben or Jack, for the first time she is ready for a real new start. However, I can understand that he draws the line here cause he told her how he felt and she still rejected him, without even giving him a proper reason. I mean, she could have told him that she is head over heels for Ben, or that she is just not open for a new relationship. She is still keeping him hanging on, and I can understand that he wants to break this cycle. About Nolan talking some sense into Emily. I must admit I still love this scene even more than this talk between Emily and Jack later. Nolan is just the best advocate for Emily and Jack, and this scene gives us the best intel on how Emily sees herself. It is interesting that again she is playing the guilt card here. First she was full of guilt because of her father and the things she did to exonerate his name. Now she denies herself of a happy relationship because she feels guilty about Jack. This is for me the reason why Emily and Victoria can never be fully alike. They have some similarities and share some character traits for sure. But besides what she did to David, she never felt guilty about anything else she had done, especially to Emily. She even does not feel guilty for Aidan's death, or at least did not express it. And that Ben discovers the truth about their relationship speaks for itself. Again, she just had forgotten about him cause it did not look like she was expecting him even though she told him to come by later. About Emily missing Jack's plane. There is another thing I ask myself. How did Victoria knew Emily would be not at home? Did she spy on her and waited until she left? Or was she counting on it to take her with her? Cause her plan was very detailed and could be derailed with one little detail. Like Emily getting on time to Jack so that he could give her an alibi. Or she could have gone over to Nolan to talk with him how she can get Jack to come back to her. Did she tell Mason to make sure Emily is alone? And why did not any one of those who work on the airfield saw her? They could have been interviewed by the police and she had an alibi. But I guess no plan is perfect, so we have to stick to the writer's version of a perfect plan. About the end montage. I love the theatrical approach to this. In her red dress and with the spot on her, Victoria really looks like the star in her own playwright. A fitting metaphor for her since she is spinning lies since the beginning. And the red and gold jewelry is a great metaphor for the flames in which Grayson Manor is about to burst. About Mason's little speech here. I must admit him coming back again was something I did not expect. But it is plausible since she broke the deal. I like that they stick to the theme, making him the narrator of Emily's story. I know this one is old and a trope of itself, but ties the show closer to the original story. And I love the montage here with Nolan, David, Jack and Margaux and Louise. You really get the feeling of game over here for Emily. She lost every one of her friends and gained new enemies that will stop at nothing to take her down. And they made us believe that punishment would come over here because of her deeds in the past. I mean, this could have been an educational ending for the story, showing us the audience that revenge not only comes with a price, but is a crime that has to be punished to restore the old order. This surely would have been the old reading of the story. Major spoiler alert for the finale. There is a review of the show on YouTube that criticizes the fluffy happy end for Emily, stating that she gets it all. But this person does not think about the price Emily and Jack paid for this happy end. Both lost the love of their life. Emily, Aidan and Jack Fauxmanda. Major spoiler alert ahead, and in the end Emily is losing her dad again. So I do not think that she gets it all. And the nightmare at the end shows that there is a lot of healing to do before she can resume a halfway normal life and cope with her multiple traumata. Anyway, this speech seems more fitting for Victoria in the end. She is the one who lights up the fire and destroys Grayson Manor only because she cannot stand that Emily has won their war. But I love his metaphor with the pyromaniac, cause literally and in a figuratively way. Emily always had a penchant for playing with fire.